A little spinny thing is happening. We are back with another Money Moves. Welcome to Tuesday. Wendy, how was your weekend?
Great. I love weekends.
Awesome. No, right? I love
Busy, full of kids stuff and all that.
Yep. Weekends are kind of my catch-up period, so I love it. But today we got some exciting stuff. So inflation kind of ticked down a little bit. I don't know if anybody's following that or not, but it sure as hell didn't feel like it when I went to fill up my tank. And went grocery shopping over the weekend too. It's just crazy what's going on out there. So today we're actually going to talk about inflation, right, Wendy? We talked about that a little bit. So what do we have going on as far as hedging against it? There's some ways you can actually protect yourself. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today. But before we get into the conversation, do us a favor, click that subscribe button down below. Show it a little love and text everybody, hey, they're getting ready to get started on Money Moves. You do not want to miss this. They're going to show you how to make your dollar go farther. Today, we're talking about hedging against inflation. We'll get started here in just a few seconds. I need to fire our AV guy. That's all I'm going to say. He's no good. He doesn't know technology. I'm kidding. I'm the AV guy, folks, in case you didn't know that. So let's get started. Let's talk about, inflation and what it is, what it isn't. I mean, the historical definition of inflation, right, has been, it's the cost of goods and services, the cost to produce them increases. So therefore the cost to the consumer increases, and that's not necessarily the case. I think a lot of people are waking up to that fact. There are a lot of different factors that tie to inflation, and inflation is relatively controlled by the government. I'm just going to say that, and we're not going to go into a whole big dive, but you've heard me talk about it, Wendy, before, about there's two ways the government can make money. One is taxation. The second is inflation. By printing more money, and that's really the direct connect. We've been printing so much. We talked about this a little in the last episode as well, with what's called quantitative easing, which is a super fancy way of saying we're printing more money. Yeah. And what happens, you dilute the pool. You gave a great example with Kool-Aid. And so we talked a little bit about that the last time. So now it's like, okay, what do we do to hedge against it? How do I protect against that? I don't know if you've thought about that, Wendy. You've got any kind of insight as far as kicking us off on the conversation or questions?
Yeah. Well, you've talked about gold and silver hedging against inflation. And I love how you make things really easy to understand. I still need some clarity on why, though, that gold and silver hedges against inflation. I know that it does. I've heard you talk about it, but it's still in my mind doesn't completely make sense. But I know that that's something that even, when you Google it, people talk about gold and silver. It's one of the top ways to protect against or hedge against inflation. So if you can share a little on that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. And like anything, you have people that say, it's a hedge against inflation. I think that's the general consensus. But there are other things out there too, which we can talk about. There are also people that say gold is not a hedge against inflation. Okay. And it really depends on when you buy, the dollar value and things like that at the time you buy versus when you liquidate, and, what premiums did you pay and whatnot. So we'll talk about, there's three basic ways to hedge against inflation, right? And I'll start with the what I think is the most riskiest, which is crypto. And I'm not going to go into a whole bunch of crypto. Everybody knows what's going on with crypto. It's kind of low right now. Crypto was designed to be kind of an economy, or not an economy, but a cash, if you will, outside of government control, right? That's rapidly changing with different measures that different governments are putting into play. And now they're coming out with their own crypto dollar and things like that. So I think that, in my opinion, the crypto future is got a big question mark next to it. Not to mention it's complicated. Most people don't know how to access it unless you're, a Gen Z or whatever, younger, maybe millennial. And so that fear of the unknown is keeping a large portion of the wealth out of it. To some degree. because it's the unknown. And you look at, oh well, it's going to go up, it's going to go up. Yeah, it goes up and it goes down on a whim, right? And
Right.
I have a lot of people that are still waiting for Doge to do its thing, right? And to the moon. You guys know what I mean if you're on Reddit. So that's one of the factors. The other one is oil, right? Or you could get into other kind of commodities, but I think oil is kind of the big basis. Typically, when the economy's challenged and things like that, the world consumes oil, like it or not. Sorry, AOC. But it's one of those things that oil is consumed not just in automobiles and gasoline, but a lot of products. All your plastics have oil in it and stuff like that. So there's always a very strong demand on it. And as that, it's where do I put my cash? Let's put it in oil because I know it's going to go there. And then the lesser, more common, more accessible, I think, and more historically proven track record is gold and silver, right? And so what you do is you buy this precious metal, and it's not, people say, oh, I'm investing in gold and silver. I don't look at it as investing in gold and silver. I look at storing buying power in gold and silver, because gold and silver doesn't necessarily go up. What happens is the dollar fluctuates.
Right.
Okay. And the value of that dollar goes up or down, which, as a byproduct, that's where the gold and silver seem more valuable. Now, I think that is subject to manipulation to some degree, just as everything else. But I think overall it's been a historical performance. I mean, people have used gold and silver for thousands of years, right? I'm sure you've got gold, or, you've heard about your grandparents or whatever, maybe have gold. And it's a matter of, I want to buy it today thinking that it's going to go up, right? And, the question is how much? And so I always recommend, no more than 10% of your assets should be in what's called a precious metal: gold, silver, platinum, right? But there's a way to buy it. I don't know. Do you have any gold or silver?
A little bit of gold. But no, I haven't. I know I do want to buy silver. That's one of the things, because you've talked to me about that I want to do in the near future.
Well, it's it's no big deal. It's one of those things that there's a lot of different people talking about a lot of different things out there, and a lot of people I'm going to put all my eggs in one basket, and I think that is the most idiotic thing to do. When everybody goes all in on Bitcoin, for example, or all in on this, or that, whatever the case, all in on real estate, right? Which, by the way, is another way to hedge against inflation. So you look at, the buying the gold and silver. So I'm a big fan. Number one, I don't want certificates saying that I have gold stored somewhere in Delaware, right? I want real tangible assets. You look at, that's a gold coin right there. That's 1 ounce of gold, right? And it's one of those that was purchased in 2000, 2001 for about $350.
Wow.
Yeah. At the time it was like, oh man, $350 for a coin. I'm never, it's da. But I picked up a couple, right? And it's one of those things that now it's like, damn, I wish I'd have bought a ton.
Yeah. So what's that worth now?
I think it's about, I haven't checked lately. I think it's about $1,700.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
So yeah, so I use an app. There's an app out there, and I'll share it with everybody, called Coinflation.
Okay.
It's going to give you the spot price on gold and stuff like that. Now you can buy, 1 ounce of this, 1 ounce of that, or ounces. Like this is a 1 ounce little ingot, right, of silver. Okay, and it's from a respected mint, if you will, Silvertown. It's not like it's not from the government or whatever, but you can pick that stuff up. There's a lot of gold and silver. You can buy stuff at pawn shops. You can buy what's called junk coins. There's a name for it. Now I'm drawing a blank here that I'm on the spot, but it's like, this is a silver dollar. It's a Morgan silver dollar, right? Now this isn't 1 ounce of silver. This is 90% content. And then you have to worry about what's called slicks with coins, right? What's a slick? Well, coins after a lot of use get slick, right? And what does that mean? That means the weight is coming off of it.
Okay.
Right. So that's a lot of information. So I'm going to hit pause for a second while I pull up Coinflation and get the answer to your question. So what have you thought about gold and silver? Talk to me.
So for instance, your gold coin that you bought for $350 now is worth
$1,775 an ounce.
Okay. So it's
$1,775.
All right. So is that because the value of the dollar has decreased?
Over time. So that's the thing. I mean, inflation usually hovers around 2-3%. So, you have a dollar bill in your pocket. Next year, it's going to buy you 97 cents worth of goods. That's not really noticeable.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not really, you don't notice it. Where you start to notice it is when it's 5 years, 10 years, 20 years later.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it works in reverse for you too. When you're talking about retirement and building retirement accounts and things like that, I need $5,000 a month coming in my retirement year. So you're planning for 5,000 a month, 5,000 a month. 20 years later, you think, okay, I've hit my 5,000 a month. Yeah, you actually need 10,000 now.
That's like, I mean, I've said this in multiple episodes that we've done, but I never thought about inflation. And then when I started working with you, and it's like, if you're going to plan for the future, you have to plan for inflation. Like,
yes.
There's no way around it, or you're screwed.
No.
So, because you're not planning for reality if you don't incorporate that. And so, and that's something I never understood before. So now I just had like a light bulb moment, because you would talk about the value of the coins increase, because the value of the dollar decreases, and that kind of opposite effect. And that was confusing in my mind, but then I said it out loud and it makes sense.
Well, and it's not because the dollar. I mean, a dollar bill today, and I could transport back in time to 1985, right, in my DeLorean, right, and I could pull out my dollar bill, and it would still look the same. It would still be the exact same dollar, but what it can do is so different than versus today, and that's the inflation piece, and that's where coming into, now the question is, okay, is $2,000 what's it worth today in 2022, 22 years later, right? What's the actual buying power? And that's where you got to consider, okay, is it really decreasing or increasing? Is it that big of a variance, almost 4 times or 3 times, 4 times what it was back then. And so, that's where a lot of different people come in, and it depends on when you buy, right? When you buy the dollar or when you buy the gold. So, I mean, there's a lot of variances in it, but, again, when it comes to buying gold and silver, start small, learn it. Don't buy numismatic coins. Okay. That's a fancy word for saying collector coins. A lot of people will go out and go to a dealer, and you'll see a silver coin in one of these little plastic cases, something like that. That is probably not what you want to buy. That's not typically junk silver. That's it's a collector coin. There's a premium for that. Right. And so, the other thing you've got to consider is what's the spot on gold, so, spot price for silver right now is $20. Okay. Now I paid $12 for that coin when I bought it. Okay. So it's now, $20 or whatever, based on the variance. But you look at that doesn't mean I'm going to get $20 for it, because they're going to hit me with a charge when I go to sell it. Right. So, buy this stuff, but know there's going to be a little upcharge, or they're going to hit you a little bit when they buy, because they've got to make money too. And that's where they make their money on the spread. But you can buy, I mean, there's a lot of mint companies out there, bullion companies that you can buy new silver and things like that aren't collector's item, but it's 1 ounce silver coins, 1 ounce silver eagles, or whatever the case may be. And you can also buy foreign coins. One of the other coins that I've got, what do they do with it? Oh, here it is. It's a, Australian kookaburra. Okay. That's nice, little shiny. It's a 1 ounce silver coin. And it's, I got that at somewhere, I can't remember. It's been a long time ago, 20 years ago, but so that stuff, you just accumulate it over time. And the thing I like about silver over gold is anybody can afford it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can buy a silver coin, you can start putting silver away 20, 40, $50 a week, and it'll start adding up over time. And there's, again, stockpiling some of it and having it around in case whatever happens, right? You can sell it later on, or if, the world collapses and Rome falls, right, you can use it to actually buy stuff too.
Yeah.
So,
well, that was one thing that I feel like is important to consider. I mean, right? Because the last 2 years have taught us, 3 years have taught us anything, things are unpredictable. And so, and we don't have as much security as we think we do.
Yeah.
And so, that's something that if you have on hand and the dollar is essentially destroyed, or money for some reason is not in circulation, or who knows, right? All your digital stuff out there. Cause really, like, the money in my bank, right, I don't have in cash. It's all in the bank. And if they stop me from getting it. So having the silver on hand too is a way that, the apocalypse comes, we can
Well,
take
yeah,
care
and there's that side of it too, right? And that's where a lot of people, you can't eat silver, you can't eat coins, buy food. Well, you want to, not to get to the whole prepper world, but you want to kind of diversify, and that's why you want to diversify. I'm talking about gold and silver, 10% of your assets of your portfolio, right? You're going to have some stocks. You better have some protected asset classes in there too, and that should be, that's where you start. If you don't know what protected asset classes are, type that down below, and we'll reach out to you. But then, talking into real estate too, real estate's another great hedge too, because people always need a place to live, right? And typically rents are going to stay up. Now there's X factors in all of this. You look at gold and silver. Well, back, I think it was in 1935, the United States government made owning gold illegal, and you had to turn it all in. Who's to say that couldn't happen again? Well, yeah, I get it. What are the likelihoods of that though? Pretty slim. And that's where shovels come in, bury it in the backyard, folks. I'm just kidding. Then the other piece is on the real estate. Well, real estate's a sure thing. Really? Okay. Because I seem to recall the administration made it okay for everybody not to pay rent for like a year and a half, and you couldn't evict them. So, that's why, again, you never want to put all your eggs in one basket, and you want to kind of hedge against all different things, all risks. But those are great ways to hedge against inflation. Number one, crypto, risky, right? Number two, risky and complicated, I think, for, boomers and Gen X maybe. And then you look at oil commodities, right? How do I get it? Where am I going to go store a bunch of oil in my house? No, you're going to buy it on, and then what are you going to do? And that's a very volatile situation too. Big wins, big losses. And then you look at silver and gold, much more secure, much more stable, very easy to use, historically proven to be, time proven over thousands of years, right? To be a store of wealth. And then also in real estate, being able to do that, but there's some other things that come into that too. So that's kind of the 4 ways to hedge against inflation. I know it's kind of crazy out there right now. We will get through this, but don't hope it's going to work out. Don't stick your head in the sand. Prepare, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Anything else to add on that, Wendy?
That's it. Good stuff. Thanks
for
explaining it. And I'm going to go buy some silver.
There you go. Go to your local pawn shop, but make sure you don't buy the slicks and only buy from reputable people. All right. Talk to everybody later. Have a great week. We'll see you next week on Money Moves every Tuesday. Subscribe, like, share, help us out. Let us get those algorithms to work for us, folks. Have a